and welcome to Finextra TV's Predict 2022 series. I'm Hannah Wallace, and kindly with me now to share his predictions for the year ahead is Michael Mueller, CEO of Form3.
Hello.
Hello, Michael. Thank you very much for inviting us to speak with you today.
Thanks for having me.
Really looking forward to hearing your predictions for the year ahead. And whilst the focus will be the next 12 months, I think it's worth reflecting on the last year just gone, because it was far from ordinary, wasn't it?
It was far from ordinary. So obviously you're talking about the pandemic, which changed a lot of things for a lot of us, right? But also the way we pay and the way we manage our finances, and most notably in shops. I think contactless payments have increased quite significantly, and I think it's no longer an issue if you leave your house without your wallet. For as long as you have your card or your phone on you, you can actually pay anywhere. So I think that is probably one of the most visible trends that we've seen in the past 2 years, and one that is not going to disappear.
That's right.
At all.
That was the big trend of last year, and although sharing predictions can be a risky business because there are unknowable factors that evolve all the time, perhaps you could give us a feel of what you think will be the key payment trend in the year to come.
Well, that's an interesting question for two reasons. First of all, payment trends are typically more long-term than just 1 year. In many ways, and as boring as that sounds, it might just be a continuation of a longer-term trend that we have seen in the different parts of the payments ecosystem. And also, there are different parts of the payments ecosystem, so it's not a homogeneous sort of business. You have obviously how you pay in shops. You have bank-based transactions, you have card transactions, you have cross-border transactions, you have settlement transactions for securities transactions, you have supply chain management. So it's a very varied and a very wide ecosystem that we're talking about here, and it's probably difficult to pick sort of overarching trends that we see across the industry.
Sure.
Having said that, there are obviously things that have started a long time ago and that we see either accelerate or be completed. The demise of the check is certainly one of those. It's still there. People tend to forget, but numbers are coming down. I talked about coins and notes in shops. That is going to continue. And I don't think, as we come out of the pandemic, that people will go back to paying with coins and notes. A trend that we've seen for many years now is the sheer number of payments that we see in the industry. So if you look at your bank statement today, you will see a lot more entries for coffees that you have paid for, or lunches or dinners, and all the rest of it. So ultimately, payments are growing by more than 15% in developed economies, and even faster in other parts of the world. Cross-border payments, very interesting topic, and I think that's clearly an area where we are in a transitional period. Cross-border payments are still, in many parts, slow, complicated, and expensive. And I think one of the key trends that we are going to see in 2022 is that they will continue to become less expensive, faster, and easier to manage. So definitely an area that is going to improve payments for the end customers.
That's right. So taking all of that into account, particularly this increased demand for real-time payments, what do you think banks need to prioritize going ahead then?
Well, many banks have actually done a lot of work on their payments estate already, but most of that is actually in the front end. And I think you will agree that a lot of the applications that we see that initiate payments have become so much better. Whether that's mobile, whether that's online banking, or increasingly the Internet of Things, or whatever initiates a payment, I think has come a long way, and it has become a lot less painful to make a payment. Unfortunately, that hasn't necessarily led to similar developments in the back office, so in the payments infrastructure. And many banks are still running on fairly old systems that were not built for real-time processing, systems that were not built for being on 24/7, and the kind of service levels that real-time payment systems require. And also, and on top of that, these old systems typically hold back innovation in the front end, because you need to test everything that you do in very old infrastructure, which basically means changes across the payments value chain are expensive and difficult to implement. There is certainly a requirement to invest further in making payments safer. As an example, push payment fraud, confirmation of payee, those type of products are very important, and to protect the end customer, the consumer, from these kind of fraud attempts will remain a key priority in 2022. So a lot of investment requirement. There's good news, however. I think increasingly banks will be able to move their investment spend from what they typically call regulatory and mandatory, so basically things they need to do to keep the lights on, to true innovation. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in that for end customers.
All right, so a lot of opportunity around investment for banks moving ahead. And what about the globalisation of markets and this complex payments ecosystem we're seeing develop? What do you think will be the main changes in this space, do you think?
I think we're already seeing that real-time payment systems and real-time payment infrastructures are being implemented across the globe. Here in the UK, we've had faster payments for more than 10 years, and most payments are processed through that. We see similar developments in other geographies. Real-time payments are scaling fast in Europe. They will accelerate in the US, in particular, also with the implementation of FedNow, so the Fed real-time initiative. And many other countries have implemented those systems, the new payments architecture or new payments processing in Australia, and similar initiatives. So I think what we're seeing is a very strong move towards real-time payments. And let's not forget, it's not the real-time aspect that is necessarily the game changer. It's also that these systems are on all the time. So if you want to send money to your friend at 2 a.m., you can, and your friend will receive that within seconds. And that requires banks to operate in a different way, run their risk systems in a different way, run their sanction screening or whatever they do with the payment on the way 24/7, 365. So a lot of change in that area. It becomes really interesting when those real-time payment systems are connected to each other. And I think the future of cross-border payments, for instance, is in connectivity between those real-time payment systems. So I think in the not too distant future, it will be possible by the use of those systems to transfer money across borders, across time zones, across continents in very short periods of time with very high level of service, transparency, but also a very low cost.
So watch this space, it's safe to say. And in summary then, Michael, maybe highlight those key areas banks need to prioritize to manage those changes you've highlighted so far.
Yeah, I think it's fair to assume that payments will remain very central to any bank's offering and a core part of their the service. And I believe that continued investment will be required to keep payments safe, efficient, and also provide the level of service that customers expect from their banks to process their payments. Increasingly, those investments will move from the front end of the business to the back end of the business. And in the coming years, we're going to see, I think, a wholesale shift of technology onto platform-based architecture, cloud-native system, and similar technologies. So there's a lot of opportunity in that for banks. There's a lot of opportunity for that for the end customers as well.
Brilliant, a positive outlook. And we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for sharing your predictions and some good advice weaved in there as well. But until then, thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you so much.